Are we starting?
Who are you?
We've never once introduced ourselves. Are we starting that now?
No, but I do think that we should do that intro video of sorts at some point.
I think we should just do an intro before every video.
I don't think so.
Welcome to the In the
No.
Forge podcast.
No.
My name is
No.
Josh, and this is Henry. If you had one soundtrack that played over your entire life and described you as a person, what would it be?
While I wish this were true currently, the 2016 Doom soundtrack by Mick Gordon.
Nice.
It's metal. And I don't necessarily think that it fits my life currently, but I think if it were playing, I would have lived my life a little bit differently.
See, I'm just picturing you like working and just like smashing people's faces and
Grab them by
running.
the neck and
Yeah.
just blowing up their heads.
Yes.
Yeah, just popping them like a balloon.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Hmm.
I think I would go, this is a bit of a cop-out, but like anything by Hans Zimmer. Like if you've ever watched Inception or the Dark Knight trilogy, those are all done by Hans Zimmer. And not because I think my life is insanely epic, but because I want it to be. And I feel like if I had some like Hans Zimmer piano playing in the background, I would just be like a brooding person and like I would just be more important, you know?
At least feel like it, yeah.
Yes, at least feel like it, yes. So that's my answer. Hans Zimmer. Love you, dog. So today's topic, life-changing movies.
Specifically movies that made you want to change your life.
Me specifically, Josh McGrain, yes. Not that like everyone who watches this movie is going to be life-changed, but for me, yes. I had Henry watch them over the last couple of days. What'd you think?
Yeah, so the two movies that you had me watch were Into the Wild and The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Yes.
So, Into the Wild, directed by Sean Penn. It was a good story. I do feel like there were some weird choices made, especially with like the camera work and just some of the art direction. But the main character, Wall, I think he did a pretty decent job and really committed to the role, especially losing all that weight. There were just some aspects of his character that kind of just annoyed me. Maybe if it was just because I knew him in person, like he was pretty kind of pretentious, or like my ideas are right, and yeah, your idea of going out into the wild and just like finding out what really matters, like to the base meaning of life. I get that, yeah, and I can appreciate it and respect it, and it's cool, but that's not necessarily total freedom. I mean, like, what are you going to do out in the wild?
Yeah.
All the time. Like,
It's definitely not realistic.
but it is, that happened.
I mean, it did happen, but I mean, like, from a perspective of, like, you wanting to follow his footsteps, it's not realistic in the sense of, like, throw away all your possessions and live off the land and find out what it means to be a man on your own. It's very romantic, the idea, and I really like that movie. Just sticks in my head because of that reason. Like, there's been so many times where I've just been sick of like trying to make money and trying to make it and trying to like live my dreams. You know, it's tiring. There's a lot of effort you have to put into it, and just the romantic notion of like, I'm just gonna throw it all away and be a vagabond and live how I want, when I want, where I want. And the reason that movie changed my life is because I watched it at the end of like high school, which was like the epitome of like, who am I? what am I gonna be?
Yeah.
What am I doing with my life? You know, and that movie gave me perspective that nothing else has similarly. Like no book, no music has ever like put in my head that like no matter what you do it for yourself or do it to be better. And yeah, it just gave me a lot of like self clarity.
Yeah, and it definitely does that, and that was definitely its purpose as an art piece. But one thing that I thought was, I don't know if this was like intentionally contradicting, but the main character says you shouldn't put so much value or a word along those lines in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like you shouldn't have so much stock in your relationships with people. But the entire movie, besides when he's like in the magic bus, he's depending and benefiting and growing from the relationships of the people he meets along his way.
Yeah. Which I think this is a real character. This is a real person in real life. And I think he had some issues. I don't think he was all mentally stable. And they show that by when he like goes into town and he like freaks out and he sees himself in like a suit being like a corporate person, even though he was like in a city for like one day, like, and he freaked out. So I think he definitely has some like mental hangups. And I'm not saying like this is who I want to be and how I want to live my life.
Yes, it is, Josh. You've said that to me every single time I've seen you, and it's getting kind of out of hand.
I'm sorry. So it's not like I don't watch this movie as seeing him as like a role model. It really is kind of a cautionary tale, this movie, with how it sadly, tragically ends. But I think there's lessons you can learn from it. And I think even though he says what you say about relationships, like you said, it is the most important part of the movie is the people he meets and like the person he becomes because of those relationships. And I think you can take away a lot from that aspect, even though that's not the point he was trying to make.
So yeah, no, he's not a role model.
Mm-hmm.
But he, especially at the time that you saw it the first time, he's like a peer. And a few years ahead even, which is potentially better.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like an older brother of sorts. You can see an older brother as a role model. But what I'm saying is you see someone who's at that coming of age like point in their life, and instead of going through those like society structured beliefs on what you should do with your life, you go to college, you get married, you have kids, and you buy a house, and all that stuff isn't bad. Like that, like maybe that might have somewhat been said in the tone of the movie, just from the perspective of the nuclear families being shown, were like the upper middle class families who don't have as much emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see it at that point in your life where you're deciding, am I going to go to college and do what my parents say, or am I going to figure out something else?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a pretty important thing to see, because college is not for everyone. And I understand from the parents' perspective, you want every opportunity and every growth potential to be like actualized.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just not the case. I mean, so many people flourish better without ever going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so just laying down a path and sticking to it without even like considering alternatives is probably one of the biggest takeaways. While it's really cool to like see how he lived his life and just survived out in the wild, both in the actual wilderness and the wild of Los Angeles, or other big cities or in the middle of the desert in these weird nudist communities.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives you like while it's in a movie, it gives you slightly different perspective
Mm-hmm.
on different aspects of life from every range.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool in that aspect. I kind of want to talk a little bit about Sean Penn, because you noticed as well that there was some weird.
Yeah, Sean Penn's like very artistic director, which can be like a good thing sometimes, and just like why are they filming it like this sometimes?
Yeah, I have a few specific things that I noticed. Like, so there was all the slow motion scenes like weren't captured in slow motion, and so their frame rate is just halved, and it doesn't look good.
So when did this movie come out?
2006.
2000. Yeah. So that was a big thing back in 2006. It was like this really weird like fake slow motion where they shoot it in 24 frames, and then they slow it down and repeat frames. And it was really big. Like, for some reason, like every movie did it. They thought it made it look really like gritty, and it's just not fun to look at like in the modern age. There was a few other like weird choices in this movie with like the camera work and even like the storytelling, where it's just like confusing, and I feel like it tries to be really artistic, and it just like is just strange choice.
Yeah, and like the style of it, I feel like just changes every other shoot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ever really fit the tone of the movie as like a whole, and so that kind of like takes you out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one thing in particular that I originally was like super like put off by, but then afterward, when I thought about it a little bit more, I liked it a lot. It was when it happened once, maybe twice, where there was a little bit of fourth wall breaking, and he like recognizes the camera, or at least looks at it.
Yeah.
And like when he was on the bridge or something like that, and it was a really weird scene. There was no dialogue, no real like build up to it. It was kind of just like you're placed there for like a few seconds. There's some music, and then it cuts out, and he's back walking around on a hike. But what I think that was since in the movie they never once really referenced or showed him using a disposable camera, that since the real guy did have a disposable camera, I don't know how often he used it, but like there's a photo of him that he took of himself, so I'm assuming that he had taken a few others along the way. I'm assuming that they used the actual camera as the like device that of the disposable camera, that was documenting his visual journey through it, even though it was like a constant rolling thing, even though it was a produced and edited movie. So so I think that's kind of one cool like tool that they used, but for the most part, a lot of the weird things that they tossed in were kind of just, like I said, off-putting and didn't really fit the tone.
Yeah. I will say, on the opposite end of that spectrum, the one thing they do really well is I really love the characters in this movie, like the ones you're supposed to like the parents are kind of meh, but they're real people, so it's kind of sad the way he like views his parents. But anyways, back to the subject. Like, I really like the characters, like the hippie couple that take him in are just like lovely people.
Yeah.
And I would love to meet people like that and have them in my life. The old man who tries to adopt him.
Yeah.
That scene is so heartbreaking. But I loved him. He was such a sweet character. And they don't have characters in movies like him, like just very genuine and like down to earth and lovable. I just want to hug him.
Stubborn old man.
Yeah. And like the main character himself is very likable in his like youthful vigor that he, like, everything he does like you said, it can be off-putting that he's like, so this is the right way. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, I love how free he is and how comfortable he is with himself. And just everyone he meets is a likable character, and I think they did that really well. So, Walter Mitty, you watched that movie. What'd you think of that one?
Like many of the movies we discuss, I gotta watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
But this could be a contender for like top 5 favorite movies.
Yeah, it's very much on the same page as Into the Wild, which is why it's life-changing in my perspective. It's another movie where he's stuck in this role and he has to break out to become this better person. But in that sense, it's much more joyful. It's much more playful. It's extremely well written. The cinematography is gorgeous. I adore this movie.
I mean, it's a Ben Stiller movie. Dude, I am a big Ben Stiller fan.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I didn't know it was Ben Stiller until I like put it in. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, looking at it from the side, I thought it was like on the cover, I thought it was Ryan Reynolds. And so I was very pleasantly surprised to see that it was Ben Stiller, and I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And he also directed it. Mm-hmm. And his movies have that kind of like aura to them that like
warm feeling.
Sort of, yes. But like Adam Sandler has his own, like you put on an Adam Sandler movie and you're like, this is an Adam Sandler movie. But
I don't condone the analogy.
You don't?
I don't like Adam Sandler, but I know what you're trying to say.
Okay. I don't dislike Adam Sandler.
I don't either. This is a tangent, but
this is a tangent.
He's a good actor, but he chooses bad roles. Anyways, moving on.
Is one of your favorite movies Click? Or is it just the one that made you cry, you little baby?
Yeah, it's a movie that made me cry for some reason when I was in high school. So
Ben Stiller stars and directs in this, and I was very, very happy about that because I think he's a really good actor. He has a very similar character that he's played throughout the years. It has developed, and it changes depending on the movie, but he has a very distinct like Ben Stiller thing.
Yeah.
Also, side note, while Nicolas Cage and Adam Sandler are doing all these like cool, gritty, like deep cuts, I want to see one from Ben Stiller.
He has been in one. What was? I can't think of the name of it, but he has done some drama work, and he is a fantastic actor. Right. I'm a huge fan of Ben Stiller. He knows comedy so well, but he can also draw you into that like lovable goof character. Mm-hmm. And he's very much that in this movie. Like he's a silly daydreamer, but at the same time he gets picked on a little bit in this movie.
A little bit.
He gets picked on in this movie, and you feel bad for him, but at the same time you know that he's like a good person, and you know he'll rise to the occasion, and he just crafted a really good character, both written on the page and performed by Ben Stiller.
This is very true, and it was like based off a short story, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I haven't read the short story, but wow, this was put together really well. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was so many parts that were like so original. Yeah. But I think what I was referencing with that Ben Stiller aura is sort of a structure. Mm-hmm. I think the scene structure of this movie was really where I see his style play out. And I think that's probably where he had his biggest impact as a director, was on set in the scene. Mm-hmm. And I would really like to know more about like the production of this movie. Yeah. Just because I do like Ben Stiller a lot, and I want to like know more about his process. Mm-hmm. But then also, like I said at the beginning, that this is like a contender for up their movies, and so I want to know, like, what'd you do? How'd you put this together?
So the reason it's on my list for life-changing movies is because, again, I feel very kin to this character in the sense of, like, if the first movie we talked about was me transitioning from my childhood to, like, manhood, becoming a man, not knowing who I am and what I want to do, this movie was like a transition of, now I know who I am, but I also want to live and not look back and regret. And this movie has a lot of those themes where his dad passes away and he has to get this job, and he's just been working tirelessly to secure a future for him and his mom and his sister. And in that process, he lost the boy in him. He lost, like, his skateboarding career that he had, and he didn't do any traveling like he planned to do because he had to hunker down and get a job. And I'm not saying I have that same thing happen to me. I have a very blessed life, but there are times when I just want to, like, explore, and I've wanted to just, like, go out on a whim and do this crazy adventure. And this movie is a lot of, like, wish fulfillment, especially the locations he goes to. Because of this movie, I did go to Iceland with my wife, and I love it there. I want to live there. If I ever have a chance to, I want to live there. Like, I won't even question it. I love that place. And this movie kind of gave me that push to go there and make life an adventure, and it really resonates with me.
Yeah, man. There were a lot of points in this movie where I'm like, damn, I gotta get out more.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few, like, things in this movie that I saw that were sort of allegories or metaphors for something, kind of like how he works at Life magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And the photographer character, Sean Penn's character,
Mm-hmm.
Says he knows how life works and how he is the one who keeps it going.
Yeah.
I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah.
And also how when he was a kid, he was a skateboarder.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's very safe and cautious, and skateboarding, besides, like, extreme parkour, is one of the most dangerous things you can do with your body.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think was pretty interesting, how he changed. It had to change over the years. And I see another relation to these movies as well, besides having a somewhat similar theme. In addition to having a somewhat similar theme, is that Into the Wild happened at that coming of age, late teens, early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Secret Life of Walter Mitty is him having that same realization of freedom and breaking out of that mold of sorts later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
And different endings.
Wait, so Walter Mitty didn't die in a bus?
No, he did.
At the end of this
He
movie?
did, yeah. No, Into the Wild, you missed after the credits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he just gets up. He's like, oh, man, I had a tummy ache.
rough tummy. Yeah. And besides from the everything, we're just gushing over this movie. Besides from the amazing acting, the cinematography was just breathtaking on a lot of occasions. Those, like, sweeping landscape. I mean, you point your camera anywhere in Iceland and it's gorgeous, so it's not that hard. But no,
Yeah,
I'm just joking.
And the graphics artists had a field day with this movie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the lines on the ground were, like, in the cement in that place in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning intro transition of the movie, there's, like, colored lines that come across the screen and then go into this just like animation, and then they settle and then change to gray, and then it fades into an aerial top-down shot with that exact same pattern as like the ribbons that were going across the screen on the ground. And I was like, oh my God.
Seamless.
Yeah, I'm like,
seamless.
Oh, like that's somebody who knows what they want and put it together, and then it worked.
Yeah,
and that was just really, really fun to see.
What'd you think of Sean Penn's character?
So I mean, I liked Sean Penn's input better in this movie than I did in the last one. I was again surprised that it was him, mainly just because I had just watched Into the Wild.
Sure.
But I did like him in this one. I think the elusiveness of him was of his character was pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then the interaction that he has with Walter toward the end of the movie, I think, was also a lot of fun, but then also like very powerful. So yeah, I think that his character was really solid as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked all the actors in this movie. Kristen Wiig was great.
Kristen Wiig is another favorite of mine.
Is it? I think it's Adam Scott. Is like
I think that's his name too.
The bully.
Another Parks and Rec guy.
Yeah, I love him in Parks and Rec, but he was such a dick in this movie, and I mean he did it well. Like I really did dislike him.
I'm wondering. So, his job in this movie was pretty similar to his first job in Parks and Rec, where he comes during like a transition period as like the bad guy manager guy who's running it all.
He's just Ben if he never met Leslie.
Yeah, he kind of is, because he has that beard.
Yeah.
Was that a real beard? Because from a distance, I'm like, that's so fake. That's so fake. You get a little bit closer.
I don't know if it's a fake beard or if he's just got such a glorious beard that it looks fake. But
or
yeah.
I think that if it is a real beard, because you get close and it looks like follicles.
Yeah.
But from a distance, like, it looks so fake.
Yeah.
And so I think that they kind of did that on purpose, because there was that
the joke about
one of his daydreams was saying that beards only look good on Dumbledore or something like that.
Yeah. Did you were you expecting all the like daydream stuff?
No, that's
such a funny part of the movie.
The first cutaway, I'm like,
what
the hell?
What was the first one, where he jumped into the building to save the
where
dog?
He's at the train station, he jumps into the building right before it explodes. Yeah. And when you see Kristen Wiig's character come over, because that was her dog, and you don't realize it's Daydream yet, you're like, how does she not recognize him? How is he not?
I made this little prosthesis for your dog.
And I'm like, wait, so he has superpowers?
Yeah. So I saw this in theaters the first time, and I was the same way. I was like, what? This movie took a really sharp turn. But I really liked their use of action and imagination to like give this movie a little bit of like edge. You know, it would still be a great movie without it, but with it just, you could tell they had fun making this movie.
Oh, so much fun. And then like just the fact that they like you were saying, they could have made the movie without the cutaways, but it just wouldn't have even been close to the same thing. It wouldn't have been nearly as original. So like these were just, I think, one of like the biggest staples in the movie.
I really like the Stretch Armstrong fight. The like superhero fight where they're like skating on the cement.
Yeah. Oh my god, that was ridiculous.
Oh, the Benjamin Buttons one.
The Benjamin Button one, I think, was probably my favorite. That was it was so long.
Yeah, but so good.
I bet they were just like dying in the booth when they were cutting that together. It's just like, should we make it shorter? No. No.
The scene where he's like, I got him at a doll shop. Talking about the clothes. I love you, baby. Oh, not like a weird little baby man way.
Not because you have a weird little baby man body. See ya.
That's A little too fast. They're drinking there.